I was going to try to take today off, right? Because I don't know if you understand how it works in the season. Wednesday is to me as Friday is to you. Generally, obviously, I still do some work on Thursdays and Fridays. I log on to Twitter pretty late in the day, first time all day, and see the absolute cesspool, media driven. Once again, we're going to talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. So I do want to point out a few things because there's a lot of, we're going to get into this whole thing, right? Because clearly it's insanity, right? Let's just call it what it is. It's absolute, a bunch of expletives. I don't swear anymore. Really felt like swearing there. But, and we don't swear on the podcast anyway, even when I did swear. But it is one of those things where it is gone insane, right? The media narrative has clearly shifted. I mean, it's not shifted, but it's gone into overdrive. It has been absolutely bonkers, to use a very inane term. And it's clearly coordinated. So what does that say? It's the same thing as it was this time last week. It's just louder, right? So no one seems to have confirmed or denied that Connor Stalions was on the sidelines at Central Michigan. Yet everyone is going absolutely nuts about it, right? Like it's as if, you know, Georgia went out and bought a bunch of more 5-stars and people actually suddenly cared about it. That's kind of where we're at. So, you know, the Bagman story, except for Michigan's doing it, like you would think that what happened is literally the worst thing that's ever happened in college football. A man's maybe or maybe not being on the, and we'll talk about that more down the line. Maybe or maybe not being on the sidelines for a game that wasn't his own, featuring a future opponent. You would think that World War III started today, and ESPN is on the front lines for it, and it's pure insanity, right? But I want to remind you, because we've talked a lot about this being a political hit job. It has been a coordinated attack from start to this point, right? It's going to continue to be one. The media the national media in particular, has all been on message, with a few exceptions before, and it's just has continued. I understand there's a lot of people out there that will say, well, Isaiah, they're just all reporting exactly what's happening, and that's just their outrage. The thing is, they haven't talked to anyone that's given them, and they might have talked to other teams and other teams' reactions, anonymous quotes from coaches and stuff on to The Athletic. What do you expect any of them to say, anonymously or otherwise, at this point? Do you expect them to be like, I think what Michigan's doing is fantastic. I think it's amazing. I think more teams need to do it. No. You have an opportunity to blow the big bad wolf's house down. You're going to do it. There's a reason why the coaches who have spoken on record with their name attached have been a lot more measured in their responses. Okay? So, I mean, that's point number one. Point number two, they don't know the intricacies of what has happened. They might think they know. There are some things out there that are not factual that are being reported. There's a lot of jumps to conclusions mats that have been dusted out of the old closet and are being utilized with heavy use. I was in trouble 2 words into that. But you have to keep in mind that someone like me or Chris Ballas or Sam Webb, we actually are talking to people who know things, actual facts that are happening. If you're looking out there for solace from someone else, you're not going to get it. Okay? Number 3, when you're trying to surely break down what a political hit job is, it's not necessarily political in the sense of they're not attacking Jim Harbaugh's political views or Michigan's political views. Of course, those things are a little bit disparate if you're comparing the two anyway. But what they are doing are using political tactics to try to get a desired outcome. That desired outcome previously was to get Jim Harbaugh suspended or fired before he even got a chance to coach another game. There's a lot of people that were basically telling you that. Like, Harbaugh can't coach another game. Harbaugh can't coach another game. Suddenly, we have the news that Michigan has approved a new contract extension for Jim Harbaugh. Suddenly, all of that has changed once again, right? Like, that's the goal has changed because they can't get what they want. Now there's no way the Big Ten can let them to continue. They have to disallow them from being in the playoff or disallow them from being in the championship game, as in the conference championship game, all of that stuff, right? The goal posts have shifted because the original goal is no longer available to them. So it is going to be a constant barrage attack of all of this. And a lot of people who are saying the things that they are saying don't know, they don't have the facts of what happened. They are making a lot of assumptions. And I mean, if for someone like me who has a pretty, I would say, beyond solid handle of what happened, I filled in some gaps with things that I don't know with just, okay, here's motive, here's all of these different things. I know I'm being cagey, but I have to be. Again, at some point, I will be able to tell you everything, and that point is not today. There are journalistic reasons why I can't do that. But when you look at the whole story, and then you know what the whole story is, and then you see a lot of media people, national media people in particular, rival media people don't really matter in terms of they're going to say what they want to say anyway. I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, certainly there would be a lot of people probably doing the same thing. Maybe me, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on what the scenario is. I hope that I'd be more level-headed than that and just tell you whatever the truth is. But I can't say with any degree of certainty. I think I was pretty measured in my Mel Tucker response. But ultimately, they're spouting off things, having made several conclusions that are not accurate. Okay? So you have to keep in mind that these are people who are essentially, they're engaging in a political smear campaign. It's just what it is. Are there facts that they do have correct? Yes, there are. But they're taking them to not just the next logical conclusion, but several logical conclusions further. And a lot of those conclusions are not what they are. So the whole point of what I am trying to tell you right now is stay calm. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Everything that I've thought about the situation since I was fully debriefed is the same as it's been. Today included. Honestly, I expected this type of insanity Thursday and Friday last week, and it didn't happen. Instead, we got a bunch of silly stories about TCU and all of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And like I said, this is what we're going to continue on with, is a lot of people are outing themselves as not knowers of ball, okay? And that's what we're going to continue on with. Why do I say that? It's not just me smearing people. I know we've covered some of this. It's worth reiterating some and kind of delving a little bit deeper. So we're going to do that here in just a moment. Before we do, tomorrow is Thursday, and you know what happens on Thursday. It's more football. And if you want to have a little extra fun on a Thursday when there's football involved, get involved with FanDuel, because you can get in on the action, on the NFL action, with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get a $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's right. You pick the winner, you get $5, you get $150 in bonus bets. Heck of a lot. You can have a lot more fun with $150 extra dollars, the $5 bet, right? That's just if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. My favorite part is the quick, fast withdrawals, but you can also go on the app, which is super easy to use, by the way. There's a wide range of betting options, which include player props, spreads, over-unders, everything under the sun that you would want. heck of a lot more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off NFL season. Been kicked off, but continue to kick it off. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so when you look at this whole thing, like I said, this whole scenario that has happened in the last week has outed a lot of people who are not knowers of ball. What do I mean by that? That's been a common thing lately. Like, this guy don't know ball, or this guy knows ball, blah, blah, blah. It's when you start getting into things like the ball boys are listening into the play calls and signaling over to the side, to Michigan sidelines, and deciphering whether it's a run or a pass with their own hidden signals. I want you to understand how much would have to go into that to make that a reality. I know I said this before. It's worth reiterating, especially in case you didn't listen to whatever show I said this on. The ball boy would have to know in full detail the terminology used by the opposing team, which would encompass essentially the entirety of the playbook, however long that is. I've seen college playbooks. I've seen some of Michigan's former playbooks. I can't remember how long they are, but they're long. They'd have to know to be able to. So first off, they would have to know the entire playbook. And they would have to know they would have to be able, upon hearing the terminology, which is specific to that team, every team uses different terminology, to intake that, be like, aha, page 76. I know exactly what you're talking about. Be able to identify that literally immediately, and then be able to signal to Michigan on the other side of the field what they decoded that quickly. Aside from the fact that ball boys are generally student interns, if they were able to do something like that in real time, they would not be ball boys. They wouldn't probably even be involved in a football team. If they had that capability, because keep in mind, they would know every team's playbook and terminology, and this changes literally on a week-to-week basis. So they're going to have all of the teams down, right? So think about the endeavor that would be, and that is what is being suggested when you have that accusation, okay? Number two, the bugaboo of the day is, again, the cheating, like the monumental advantage gained by sign stealing. Now, listen, I don't know of any other teams necessarily. I have heard that other teams have deployed similar tactics. I don't know how prevalent this Connor Stallion situation actually is, as far as the people going to games. All of you, if you're a Michigan person, you know the NCAA deemed it a negligible advantage, right? I don't care really about that. I care more about the practice here. This kind of newfound thing of other teams don't steal signs, because again, we're arguing things that aren't necessarily what is being alleged, right? Like, I understand that people like to say, like, no, what is being alleged is what is being alleged. Okay, true. Number one, but number two, the majority of teams steal signs. I gave you the Big Ten teams that do it and do it well, and the ones that do it okay, and the ones that don't do it. It's the majority of teams that do steal signs. And like I said before, trade with each other. Again, go back to last Wednesday's show if you want to know the quote again. If you didn't watch that, I'll tell you the quote again. Every Sunday, coaches and support staff with mutual connections throughout the conference contact each other to trade not just schematic notes, but also to trade signals. Some of the top teams who consistently trade signals and have very accurate information on common opponents are, here's your top tier, Michigan, Rutgers, Ohio State, Indiana, and Purdue. Other teams who are decent at it and would always look to trade are Illinois, Northwestern, Maryland, Minnesota, and Penn State. Wisconsin was oblivious to it, but is likely no longer with the new staff. Michigan State, Iowa, and Nebraska appear to be oblivious and out of the loop. So there you go. That's from a trusted Big Ten source. Gave that to me, and I shared that with you on Wednesday last week. So 1 week later, I'm sharing it again. So that's there's that aspect, but there's right now going to be a lot of Mrs. Lovejoys out there. Won't you think of the children? And a lot of the ones that are screaming that are the ones that are complicit as well. They just maybe weren't overachievers. Let's put it that way. Okay. So it's just, if Michigan was suspected of stealing signals, just like, like Michigan has people who are trading with other people of the aforementioned list. Like, they all know they're stealing each other's signals. Okay. They all know. And I think it's worth bringing up. And this was a couple tweets from Richard Johnson, who wrote I would call it the character assassination piece, if you're looking at this in terms of the political hit job on Connor Stallions for SI. He wrote, one of the interesting things about the Michigan thing is how coaches view the act of sign stealing itself as it pertains to this Michigan team. I spoke to a coach who has faced Michigan this season, and he said, quote, it wouldn't have mattered if they had them all or not. Okay, so this is in reaction to the Athletic piece that came out. He continued with someone else asking him, do you think it will benefit them ultimately that the information came out now? Like, for example, blah, 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 whatever. He said, honestly, this team is fine. It's clear that many of the coaches who played them already this season were aware that Michigan was at best very good at stealing signs. They also took requisite precautions pregame and still all lost by 30 plus. Okay, this goes back to the Dion thing. You still have to be able to execute about it, right? I told you, Rutgers and Indiana had Michigan signs in 2018. Rutgers put up no fight. They lost 42-7. Indiana put up some fight. Michigan still won handily and would have won probably more handily if there weren't significant injuries in that game and some questionable late first half clock management. Okay? So that's the kind of point that I am making. Right now you're seeing allegations that Michigan wouldn't be able to have won any games, and there's people that say 2020 and then look at them. No, 2020 is the anomaly. Okay? Michigan was a team that had gone to they were on the verge of a couple college football playoffs, right? 2018, if they would have beaten Ohio State, college football playoff. 2016, if they would have beaten Ohio State, college football playoff. Okay? This was not a team that was just languishing in the weeds, incapable of doing anything, and then suddenly got good, right? This isn't Rutgers, who steal signs, again, by the way, suddenly becoming beating everyone by 30 points, right? Daniel Jeremiah appeared on Rich Eisen today and had it pretty well put out, right? Like, I've seen people say things like Aiden Hutchinson would not have been able to pancake what's his name, Thayer Munford, if it wasn't for him knowing the blocking scheme. No, Aiden Hutchinson doesn't know the blocking scheme, right? Number one, he just bull rushed the dude, and the dude went down. And if you think that's how sign stealing works, then again, you are giving way too much credit to the operation. Okay? It's the coaches are essentially informed by their sign stealer. Hey, here's what we should run based off of what they're calling. Okay? It's not, and they also certainly they do their due diligence and scouting and a whole bunch of different stuff, right? They watch all kinds of film. They have access to all 22 for all of the games, blah, blah, blah. And it's the coaching staff that has more of the knowledge on that front. When I say coaching staff, I don't just mean like a coordinators. I mean people like Connor Stallions, okay? So you have that. The players are reacting to the play that is being called. Now, they may have, they've done their own film sessions and whatever and can look and see whatever, right? They suspect things, but if sign stealing was as prevalent and it is prevalent, but if it was as it allowed you to dominate the way that Michigan has been, then there would be no faulty plays, right? You'd be like, oh, they're running right, okay? And then every single thing would be stopped all the time, okay? as Daniel Jeremiah said on Rich Eisen, Michigan is a team full of NFL dudes, right? We're going to continue on that light because we're up against it and I still have more thoughts. But Michigan's a team full of NFL dudes and suddenly people act like this is a middling team that just came out from out of nowhere. We're gonna continue on in just a moment. Before we do, passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices that you want. It's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, this is where knowers of ball are ridiculous, right? This whole thing or non-knowers of ball, rather, are ridiculous because there's just a lot of, why is JJ able to make all of these throws? It's because he knows where the guys are going to be. No! Have you watched the games? He's making these pinpoint perfect throws into double coverage sometimes, right? If you know, hey, this is what the coverage is going to be, then you're not going to make a throw into double coverage, okay? Let's just all calm down. Let's all put our shirts back down, in the words of Michael Bluth to Kitty and Tobias. I had to work in some Arrested Development in there one way or another. There's a lot of people who are wish casting, and the media is at the top of the list right now, okay? This campaign to get Michigan kind of canceled is before NCAA has levied any kind of allegations, before it comes out, the rumors that are out there about who hired the PI firm, all of that stuff. It's clearly slanted towards one thing, right? And you see a lot of people, why has Harbaugh not said anything? He's told you what he can tell you. He released a statement. Why is no one asking him? People have asked him way more than they should, considering they let you know, hey, he can't talk about it. Or he even says, I can't really talk about it. I would love to, but here's what I can say, or whatever. Okay? It's the media's just not asking him the questions. They are. It's at some point it gets annoying because it's you're 10 minutes in and it's every question's been about it and it's just every answer. Read my transcript from yesterday, or Monday rather. Okay? Everyone's getting asked about it. Everybody. I'm talking players, assistant coaches, all of the Harbaugh, all of the above. It's getting asked ad nauseum. They can't fight back. Okay? So that's the thing. Michigan can't come out and clarify anything at the moment. This is a one-sided thing, and it's an echo chamber that is just getting more and more polarized because it's a political hit job, and they're trying to get to their desired outcome. Michigan not in the Big Ten championship or college football playoff. It's funny how it seems that Ohio State writers are really galvanized behind this idea. Okay? Now you add into the fact that people are complaining about Michigan having stolen signs when, again, other teams have huddled all year. The only one of the Big Ten opponents that did not huddle was Indiana, who had a brand new offensive coordinator starting in that game. Michigan has not needed to steal signs, and certainly they're going to notice tendencies and stuff, right? You don't need to steal a sign to be when they line up in this formation, then something's probably going to happen. Everyone out there loves the TCU story, but if you sit there and think about how that game actually went and what actually happened, it had nothing to do with stealing signs. It had with Michigan spotting them 14 points by JJ throwing 2 pick sixes, having some questionable defensive play calls, having a heck of a lot of offensive turnovers that led to Michigan not scoring, and Michigan just playing uncharacteristic, okay? Michigan wasn't playing uncharacteristic. TCU didn't force Michigan to go into a Philly special on a 4th and 2 on the goal line, okay? That was Michigan that did that. That was Michigan that decided to get cute and say, instead of saying, we've got people who can barrel in and the best offensive line in the country, let's just run, try to run it in, or do a play action and then try to score a touchdown that way. Okay. It's just a whole bunch of narratives that are just absurd. And you're going to continue to drive yourself crazy the way that I am doing on this episode I planned on not recording until I logged on to Twitter and said, and I was supposed to be at church right now. Well, on my way to church, and I am not. Not because of this, but nonetheless, it's just it's tiresome. Okay. Will Michigan be found guilty of something? If it is confirmed that it is Connor Stallions on the sidelines at the Michigan State CMU game, which again we'll talk about in more detail if and when that is confirmed, okay? And the whole what do I know, what didn't I know, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that at that time. That will be an NCAA violation, okay? Everything else still is a gray area. And they're going to hype this up like it's the biggest deal because who benefits from this? Right? Ohio State writers and people who seem to have been in lockstep and have some of these scoops before anyone else, right? They've Ohio State people on their boards, whether it's writers or other Ohio State fans, seem to know this was coming a month down the pike before anyone else, okay? So you have to ask, what do they benefit from any of this? Well, yes, they would. If Michigan is, which it's not going to happen, by the way, it's not. So, like, the Big Ten is not going to suspend Michigan barring something else, right? This is still in investigation. They have not been levied any charges. Michigan would still have 90 days to respond to the NCAA. I doubt the Big Ten is going to do anything based off of some things that I know about this case, okay? So just let them panic, let them do all these things. Don't pay attention to it. Hold fast and understand that this was part of it. This today does not surprise me. What surprises me more is the level of idiocy that is coming out, trying to make Michigan look worse with the dumbest things that I've ever heard when it comes to the game of football. All right. So that's it. We will talk about this more. I normally put out a call for questions. I haven't done it. I guess I will still do that. We'll do a mailbag on Thursday. I'm sure if I put one out tomorrow on Thursday, it will get 58 questions. I don't know. Maybe we won't do one. I don't want to have to deal with sifting through a bunch of rival people asking questions. But that's it. We'll talk soon. Peace.